The Death of Hermes. Chapter 4. Charon and Hermes talk. Charon remained still and silent as Hermes retold his story. He never interrupted, instead just staring at the horizon, taking every word in. Hermes observed Charon as words spilled out of his mouth. He told Charon everything. About Demeter asking him about her lost daughter and resigning herself to never finding her again. About Zeus calling to him and confronting him for helping Zagreus. He told Charon about Zeus revealing that he too knew Kore was in the underground. He told him about Zeus killing him. He toyed with his chiton the entire time, pulling at it and twisting the fabric with his fingers. Hermes expected it to be wet with blood, but every time he looked down, his chiton was white and perfectly clean. So yeah, boss, that is pretty much it. Pops, Zeus killed me, and, well, I woke up here, and you were there and took me out of the river. Hermes' words were low, as if he was whispering to himself. Charon looked at him softly, as if waiting for confirmation that Hermes was done. Hermes clicked his jaw, nodding silently at Charon. Yeah, that's pretty much it. The boatman wrapped his arms around Hermes, bringing him close. He let himself be dragged into the embrace. He felt the soft fabric of Charon's robes engulfing him, hiding him from the rest of the world. Charon's strong hand curled around Hermes' head, thick fingers massaging his scalp. Hermes pressed his face against Charon's chest, letting himself be engulfed by Charon's being. Charon whispered lowly, his smoke tickling at Hermes' forehead. He took a deep breath, closing his eyes and letting his mind wander. He didn't want to think of what happened. He didn't want to think of the implications of Zeus somehow knowing about Persephone. He just wanted to be there, held by Charon's arms. He wished he could live in that moment for all eternity as the rest of the world faded away. He took a deep breath. They had to figure out what to do. There was no longer a thing just between Charon and Hermes. Both Zeus and Hades knew now. As much as the lovers appreciated their secret plans, everything had blown up. Now what? Boss, I think we can't keep this secret anymore, Hermes whispered against Charon's chest. The boatman slightly squeezed Hermes. Sure, Hermes was an active participant in the whole plan of helping Zagreus reunite with his mother, but Charon was the one who planned it all from the beginning. Everything Hermes did was for Charon's sake. Zeus knows about Persephone and was terrified of Demeter finding out. I don't understand. How does he know? Why did he never tell Demeter? Do you think it was to protect Hades? Charon grumbled, unsure. Hermes couldn't make sense of it. Zeus was impulsive and never thought about the bigger picture. If anything, he expected his father to immediately tell Demeter about her daughter's whereabouts. He could be protecting Hades, but for some reason he couldn't believe it. There had to be something more about it. I don't know what to do, Hermes admitted. It's your call, Charon. Charon turned to face him, to look at him in the eyes. His hand scooped Hermes' cheek, thumb caressing his warm skin. Hermes leaned into the touch. I am fine, dear. It is your call. You're the one who planned this entire thing. It is your ass that is on the line. I wouldn't be doing something that you do not agree with. No, sir. Charon just kept staring at him, now both hands gently holding Hermes' chin up. He hissed softly, and Hermes just... He didn't know what he felt as Charon stared at him. Adoration in his eyes. I am fine. I will be fine, Hermes whispered. He placed his hand on top of Charon's, the coolness of his rings contrasting to Hermes' warmth. I can die 1,000 times, I don't care. But if anything ever happened to you... Charon placed a cold kiss on top of his forehead. Hermes bit his lip, trying to keep himself from tearing up. The boatman held close to him, burying Hermes' head into his chest as he placed his chin on top of his head, between Hermes' wings. He knew his associate was deep in thought by the way he pet Hermes' head, fingers toying with his golden feathers. He didn't want to leave everything up to Charon, but Hermes didn't want to risk the boatman's safety just for his sake. Whatever it was Charon wanted to do, Hermes would do it without hesitation. After a long time, Charon finally let go of Hermes. He stood up. He stared up at the chthonic god, the corners of his mouth twitching as he waited for an answer. He grumbled, tipping his hat slowly. Smoke emanated from his mouth, swirling in the air. Charon placed both hands on Hermes' shoulders, squeezing him gently. His eyes went wide at that. Talk to Hades about this? Are you sure? Charon nodded. But he will know that you've been working to help Zagreus even before that was acceptable. He will know that you aided in him finding Persephone. Another silent nod. Hermes felt panic in his stomach. He jumped in the air, floating above Charon as he started to spiral into his own anxiety. But if he finds out, then who knows what he will do to you? I can't let you do that, Charon. I'll take the fall. Hermes continued to wildly move around, wings violently beating in the air. I mean, he hates Olympians, and I am one. He will see it coming from me, but from you? He will... I can't let you do that. I'll say it was my idea from the start. Yes, then... Charon's hands grabbed his own, forcing Hermes to pause. The ferryman stood up to his full height, while he still held Hermes, now being at eye level with the little god. Charon nodded, slowly. It was okay. Charon would be okay. Yet the idea of Hades doing anything to Charon, it clawed up his stomach. But he had to trust Charon. If he wanted to talk to Hades about it then, he had to trust him, even if it was eating him alive. Okay, I trust you. Hermes squeezed Charon's hand back, smiling weakly. So, I guess we need to go back, eh? Charon nodded, but just before Hermes could say anything, they could hear footsteps. Barefoot footsteps, in fact. Zagreus stood at the other side of the room, sword resting in his shoulder. His face was a mixture of concern and confusion. Nice to run into you two. Hello, Cos, Hermes greeted, crossing his legs while still midair. I don't suppose Uncle Hades sent you here to fetch me, eh? As a matter of fact, he did. He was highly worried you would get out of the underworld before we could find you. Ha! Uncle Hades must think highly of me if he thinks I'm able to get out on my own. Hermes chuckled. Do not worry, Cos. I am not going to put up a fight. In fact, we were just talking about going back. Smoke piling up under his hat. Zagreus still looked very confused. Look, gentlemen, with all due respect, I am not sure what's going on. I just know one minute everything is okay in the house, the next minute my father is telling me I need to find you. Stat. Care to explain what is going on? I would love to, Cos, but I think it's better to explain it to your father and mother as well. I don't really want to repeat myself. Both Charon and Hermes made their way to the skiff, ready to leave towards the house. Zagreus stood there, still confused. Charon was already ready to go. Oh, sure. I prefer riding on your boat again rather than walking back or being mauled by wretches. Zagreus boarded. Once Zagreus boarded, Charon paddled away. Hermes normally would be chatting away, filling the empty space with whatever came to mind, but instead he couldn't stop thinking about everything. He turned to look at Zagreus, who was simply staring at all of Tartarus around them. Hey boss, Zag, can I ask you a question? Hermes finally asked. Zagreus turned around, slightly surprised. Hermes figured it was better to ask him now where they had some privacy than in the house with everybody listening. When you die and come back, does it hurt? Zagreus tilted his head to the side. Yeah, it does hurt. But does it hurt a lot? The young prince's eyebrows knit together, deep in thought. Not really. I mean, yes, it does, but it just feels like when you hit your toe. It hurts a lot for a few seconds, then it actually feels kind of nice to be reborn in the pool of sticks. Like when you wake up from a refreshing nap. That's odd. Granted, Zagreus has died many, many times. This was Hermes' first time dying, but it seemed to be vastly different from what his cousin described. Is something the matter? What is it with this sudden curiosity over dying? Hermes covered his mouth with his hand, looking at the horizon deep in thought. I died. Hermes spoke. I guess Uncle Hades didn't tell you, huh? But I died and was reborn in the pool of sticks. You died? What killed you? Wait, pool of sticks? Zagreus leaned forward. I thought Olympians were to be reborn in Olympus. Hermes' eyes widened at this. Zacharias was right. Why did he emerge from Styx and not Olympus? He had witnessed Ares being reborn from Olympus a couple times in the past, and while his brother was a glutton for punishment, each time he was reborn he looked better than ever, unlike Hermes, who felt the experience to be very traumatic. Perhaps your father can explain that. To be honest, I do not know why that happened. He smiled softly. As in how I died. I'll explain it in due time. Oh, okay. They remained silent the rest of the ride, as Zagreus paddled softly towards the house of Hades. Zagreus kept fidgeting with curiosity up to the house. Hermes could tell he was dying to know what was going on, but Hermes wasn't in the mood of explaining everything more than once. His cousin could wait. Zagreus walked up inside the house, while Hermes and Charon trailed behind. Hermes still felt his chest tight, worried for Charon's fate, but his partner simply grabbed him by the shoulder, assuring him everything would be all right. Hermes hoped that was true. Taking a deep breath, they went inside. The moment they stepped inside, Hades' voice boomed from his desk. "Oh, how kind of you to grace us with your presence, Lord Hermes." Hades continued to work at his desk, not even looking at him. "Such a busy Olympian, I'm sure we are taking away from your precious time." "Father, would you please stop it? There is no need for such condescension." Zagreus approached his father's desk, having no issue in challenging Hades at all. "Pah! Silence, boy! I have already enough things to do to listen to your complaining." He awkwardly moved towards the desk. Persephone was there as always, silent and staring at Hermes, face painted with worry. Nyx, Mother Night, was also there. She said nothing as well, but Hermes really couldn't tell what she was thinking. He had met Nyx a handful of times, but the chthonic goddess always remained the same, a beautiful constant. Charon slightly tipped his hat at her. "Hello, my child," she greeted him, but said nothing after. They both stood there, waiting for Hades to say or do something. Anything. He finished whatever he was doing and placed his papers back on his desk. Hades took a deep breath, ready to speak. "I." Charon immediately raised his hand, interrupting Hades. The Olympian stared at him, mustache twitching in irritation. Hermes could feel his anxiety skyrocketing. "Is there something you want to say, Charon?" Hades replied, clearly upset at the interruption. He nodded. Hermes couldn't stop toying with his scarf, anxiously waiting for Hades' response. Lord Hades sighed. "Speak then, whatever it is that is so important." Charon pointed at Persephone and Nyx, then pointed towards the garden. He could feel Hades' irritation from where he was standing. Persephone gently grabbed his arm, trying to calm Hades down. "I'm sure it's related to Lord Hermes' situation. Isn't that right, Charon?" He nodded. Meanwhile, Nyx was staring at Hermes, expression unchanged. She was not taller than Charon, but she still made him feel so small. She was just so vast. "Let us talk in the garden. We will have privacy there." Nyx spoke, and a shiver went down Hermes' spine. "All right." Hades was not amused, standing up to his full height, not wanting to challenge Nyx nor his wife. Before he could go with them, Charon stopped Hermes, placing his hands on his shoulders gently. "What? You don't want me to go with you?" Hermes was slightly offended at this, but Charon gently shook his head. He must have known that, if Hermes was there, he would put all the blame on himself. He would. "Will you be okay?" he asked, his voice very small. He could see Hades instructing Zagreus to stay out of the gardens as well, while Persephone and Nyx made their way into the garden. Charon placed a kiss on the corner of Hermes' lips. He let go of the winged god, making his way to the others. Zagreus flipped his father off as he went to the lounge, doors to the garden closing. Hermes swallowed, fingers shaking as he stared at the door. He had to trust Charon.
"Hello, and welcome to the house of... Oh, hey, it's you again!"
Hypnos had not moved from his spot since Hermes surfaced from the pool of Styx, but he had been asleep when he returned to the house, at least until now. At the realization of Hermes being there once more, Hypnos started digging around the papers he had in his board, looking for something in specific. "Hello, I don't think we properly met." Hermes' normal demeanor came back in an attempt to greet Hypnos formally for the first time. "Name is Hermes, god of swiftness, commerce, and a lot of other things. Messenger of the gods, fastest of all the land." He was about to extend his hand to greet Hypnos, but realized that the god of sleep was too absorbed in his task of going through his stack of papers.
Hermes, aha!
He pulled a piece of paper between his fingers, reading it carefully. It had Hermes' name written on it.
"You said you got killed by a bear, huh? I just wanted to make sure because, you see, it says here something completely different."
He pointed at the paper. "It says here that you were killed by Zeus." Hermes didn't let him finish. "Killed by Zeus." Hypno stared at him, a goofy smile permanently etched on his face, eyes half-lidded. He was as unreadable as Nyx.
"So no bear?"
"Nope, no bear."
"Okay then, glad we cleared that out."
He placed the piece of paper back into its place.
"You know, maybe next time you should run faster."
Fighting was forbidden in the house of Hades. "Hey, mate," Zagreus called for him. Hermes turned around to see him poking his head out of the lounge. "Want to have some drinks while we wait?" Hermes turned to face Hypnos, but the god was already fast asleep. He shrugged and ran to the lounge, leaving an orange blur behind him. "Whoa!" Zagreus chuckled. "I always get surprised at how fast you are." "Keep running. Maybe one day you'll be half as fast as me," Hermes said, laughing. Zagreus hugged him in a welcoming manner. Hermes reciprocated as well, patting his cousin in the head, careful not to touch his hot laurels. It felt nice, a change from the difficult day he was having so far. "While I do not enjoy the current situation, I am glad to see you here, Lord Hermes." Zagreus motioned to the bar, where the chef had already served them a healthy glass of, hopefully, an alcoholic drink. "Oh, please, ditch the Lord. We're not on the clock right now, are we?" Hermes chuckled, taking a swig out of his drink. "Non-alcoholic. Fun." They moved to an empty table, the others being full of shades chatting amongst themselves. Hermes swirled the drink in his glass, watching it sparkle under the lights. "If I may ask something, Hermes. You knew about my mother being Demeter's daughter, didn't you?" Hermes smiled weakly, taking a drink of the liquid. "Yeah, I did. I gather as much. You are the only Olympian that knew about the queen returning. Why didn't you tell the others?" "Well, it's a long story, and I don't think I get to tell you, at least not now." Hermes rested his chin in his hand. "But my current problems are very tied to this." A green light interrupted, shrouding the room with a pale green light. Ah, Thanatos. The god of death materialized just right next to Zagreus, floating a good feet above the ground. "Zagreus, I've been looking everywhere for you." He leaned down and gave a quick kiss to Zagreus. It was so nonchalant, like a routine for Thanatos. Zagreus just smiled goofy at it. "I thought you may need some help looking for—" He noticed Hermes across the table. "Oh, hello," Thanatos greeted. "It seems you have found him rather quickly." "Did Lord Hades send everyone to look for me? I feel popular," he chuckled, taking another drink from his very non-alcoholic drink. "You made quite the commotion, storming out of the house. What was that about?" Hermes waved his hand. "It's being settled with Uncle Hades and Charon." "Brother Charon?" Thanatos asked, confused. "Hey, Than, do you happen to know why Hermes emerged from the Styx rather than from Olympus?" Zagreus interjected, not allowing Thanatos to delve into Charon's involvement. "The way Hermes explained it, it also was very painful for him." "Is it not painful for you when you die, Zagreus?" "Well, yes, but it just hurts for a bit. Apparently for him it was very painful." Yes, it was my first time dying, however, so perhaps it is my lack of experience in the process that made it so painful." Hermes tried to rationalize it, but he wasn't entirely convinced. "Well, the first time I died, it wasn't that painful. Maybe it has something to do with the whole popping out of Styx rather than in Olympus." Zagreus stayed up at Thanatos. "From what I know, chthonic beings are the only ones that can emerge from the river of Styx. Perhaps it has something to do with a connection to the underworld." Thanatos tapped his chin. "I do not know much about Styx. Charon may be able to shed a light into the situation. He has a deep connection with it." Hermes doubted it. Otherwise, Charon would have mentioned it. But, well, Hermes did not ask. Maybe he did know, but they were too overwhelmed by everything happening and didn't occur to either of them to talk about it. The doors leading to the garden opened once more. Hermes felt the bottom of his stomach go cold as he heard footsteps coming out of it. "Lord Hermes," Hades' voice called. "I require your presence at this moment. Bring Zagreus too." Hermes braced himself at what was next. "Hey, Than, want to come?" Zagreus asked, but Thanatos just looked surprised. "He didn't call for me, Zag. He called for you, and— Oh, please, it'll be okay. Father loves you. He won't be mad." Thanatos bit his lip and nodded, following behind Zagreus. Hermes was slightly annoyed at how flippant his cousin was, but the prince wasn't fully aware of what was going on. Normally, Hermes would be like him, with a carefree attitude and trying to be positive, yet he was far too worried about Hades' reaction. The underworld's garden was something Hermes had never seen before. There were no bright colors, unlike the gardens in Olympus, instead being different hues of gray and black. Beautiful flowers he had never seen before. Were they exclusive to the underworld? Were perfectly planted and primed. Pomegranate trees grew massive, the fruit dangling from the branches. Charon once told him that, before she left, Persephone had taken care of it. It was absolutely beautiful. Hades stood by the door as they entered. Hermes walked past him to see the others standing at the center of the room. Persephone was deep in thought, while Nyx's expression was the same as always. She stared at Hermes but said nothing. Charon was beside her, hands gently holding his oar.
Thanatos is far too busy to be here, boy. Do not waste his time.
Hades' voice boomed from behind him.
Oh, come on, I'm sure whatever this is about is important enough for him to be here. Right, Than?
Thanatos shrunk a little, staring to Zagreus, then at Hades. Perhaps it is good for him to hear this too, so he knows. Nyx spoke. Hades sighed and closed the doors, joining the rest in the center. Hermes floated next to Charon, while Zagreus stood next to Persephone and Thanatos next to Nyx. Hades crossed his arms and stared down at both Hermes and Charon. He clicked his jaw multiple times before he spoke.
It appears we have 2 conspirators here.
Thanatos' eyes went wide and stared at them both, but said nothing.
It seems that you 2 have your own agenda, not only going behind my back, but going behind Olympus' back for your own plans.
Hades' voice was deep and terrifying.
To think that Charon would plan this.
It was my idea, Hermes spurted out. Charon had nothing to do with it. It was me who... Charon placed a hand on his back, gentle. Hermes looked at him, Charon's purple eyes glowing a comforting light. Hermes took a deep breath and floated down, standing on the ground.
Charon already informed me about everything you 2 have planned.
I do not understand, Thanatos spoke up. Charon? What is he talking about? Conspirator? Surely Lord Hades is mistaken. Nyx gently placed a hand on Thanatos' shoulder. Thanatos, Charon and Lord Hermes have been working together to aid Zagreus into his goal to find Persephone. So what? I have done so too. And you too, Mother. Thanatos was growing restless. It seems that their involvement has predated even my help. For what purpose, we do not know yet. Thanatos' eyes remained wide as he stared at them. Hermes felt judged by Thanatos, as if it was his fault that his elder brother had decided to work on his own. Charon, you told Hermes about me being in the underworld? Knowing that Olympus must not know? Persephone's voice was sad, almost breaking. It made everything twist inside of Hermes' gut. No, he didn't tell me, Hermes immediately replied back. He told me nothing. I pieced it together myself. The shades, they talk. They talked about the missing queen. When they talked about you, I realized who you were. I asked Charon, and he confirmed my suspicions. I was the one who figured it out, not him.
What I do not understand is why you have not told my brother Zeus about Persephone's location.
Hades had his arms crossed over his chest.
Why is that you never told them?
Persephone was safe, all right? I figured there was a reason she didn't want to be in Olympus anymore. Whatever the reason, she would be dragged back if they ever found out. Hermes bit his lip, hands moving as he spoke. And Charon asked me not to, when I found out. Hermes, Persephone was obviously touched by this, but she blinked and continued questioning him. I understand if you didn't want to tell Olympus about me, but then why did you help Charon in aiding Zagreus? What benefit would you have in reuniting me with my son? All eyes fell on Hermes. All eyes fell on Hermes. They were waiting for his reply, something that made sense out of his actions. For what reason did he do all this? He had nothing to gain from reuniting mother and son. Hermes didn't get anything back. Hermes didn't get anything back once Persephone returned as the underworld's queen. There was no reason for him to risk not only Hades, but Olympus finding out about his trickery. Charon asked me to.
You went behind Lord Hades and Lord Zeus' backs, being at risk of being found out, only because Charon asked you to?
Thanatos was bewildered. Hermes thought about it for a while, and nodded. Yeah, that's pretty much it, yeah.
Can I interject for a second?
Zagreus raised his hand, but did not wait for anyone to reply before he went on.
Charon, mate, I also have the same question for you. If you orchestrated all of this and recruited not only Hermes but Skelly to help me get to the surface, for what reason? What did you gain from me meeting my estranged mother?
Charon lightly tipped his head at Persephone's direction, breathing out smoke as it curled above them all, thick and shiny. You just wanted to help, Zagreus repeated, and Charon nodded.
Well, it seems we have settled the reason for your meddling. Fortunately for you, it seems your efforts to reunite us has succeeded. Yet I cannot ignore this.
Oh, please, Father, what are you going to do? Fire Charon? You know you can't even if you want to. As forward as ever, but Zagreus was right. Charon has been there way before Hades was even born. If his uncle thought that he could just get rid of Charon, then he was wrong. Even Hermes knew how Hades would say whatever he wanted, but it would never touch Charon. Charon is the Styx. He just can't hire some shade to do his job.
If you would stop interrupting me, I would appreciate it. It still gravely concerns me that you would risk your queen's safety by not informing me the instant you realized an Olympian knew about her.
Charon sputtered, smoke thick and semi-solid. He trusted Hermes not to tell anybody. The winged god felt touched.
Even if it worked out in the end, it was a foolish decision. We cannot afford Olympus to know about her. However, obviously we still have a problem with my brother, Zeus.
After you left, Hypno said the information in your record must be wrong, since it said you were slain by Lord Zeus. Persephone interjected. Thanks, Hypnos.
Uncle Zeus killed you?
It was now Zagreus' turn to look confused.
For what reason?
Charon did not tell us the reason my brother would slay you. Care to elaborate on this?
Hades' stance was more relaxed, worried if anything. Very different to Zeus back when he demanded an answer from Hermes.
Yes, Pops. Lord Zeus was able to figure out I was helping cause here.
He rubbed his hands together anxiously. He then guessed that I knew about Lady Persephone being in the underworld. He then decided to kill me, out of fear of me telling Demeter.
Hold on, he didn't want you to tell Demeter?
Zagreus shared Hermes' confusion.
I would expect he would be angry for not telling anyone. Not because you could tell Mother's location. I don't understand either. He knew Lady Persephone is here with Uncle Hades. If he knew, then why didn't he tell before? He just killed me, absolutely terrified I would tell Demeter.
Charon placed his hand on Hermes' arm, cooling and soothing. Thanatos seemed to now understand Charon and Hermes' actions and intentions, but he didn't seem to have an answer about Zeus's actions. The prince himself, his eyebrows were knit together in confusion and realization of what was happening.
There is something you do not know about Lord Zeus,
Persephone interjected. She held onto Hades' arm, looking up at him for approval. Hades closed his eyes and nodded silently.
What is it, Father? Is there something you know that can make sense out of all of this?
As a matter of fact, I do.
Hermes listened intently.
My brother Zeus, he is the one to blame for your mother, Queen Persephone, to be here.
The words hit Hermes like a stone. He couldn't truly comprehend what he was hearing.
I beg your pardon?
He asked, feet completely on the ground, as if that helped with his digestion of the news. Zeus brought me here. He kidnapped me from Olympus and brought me here to the underworld. Hermes felt like his legs were going to give out. He couldn't help but laugh.